particularly when it comes to the excellent units. Next one, please. Yeah. So, going to what we do, our main focus is on treating and preventing human diseases. We're in the business of improving lives. We don't do core basic research unless it has impact on people's lives. The other kind of key principle that we operate is that we always operate overseas in partnership. It's a really important principle. We don't fly in. We always have got partners. Whether it's Khemri, the hospital in Vietnam or Moro, and every other institute we've got has got a key partner, and that's really important to all of us. Okay. So, in terms of global impact, that really goes without saying. And if you look back at the history of Artemis and Nick, I don't know what the chickens are doing there, Nick, but the Nick and the chickens, and then more recently, the R21 vaccine. Obviously, Adrian is going to be phenomenally important, I think, and we've heard so much more in this meeting. Triple ACTs are obviously important, and the pandemic response, both overseas, obviously, the amazing impact, but also in Oxford. Everything that we did in Oxford was translated from the overseas units, whether it's ISARA, the vaccine, the recovery trial, and how it was rolled out, making testing devices, that's sort of Derek Crook, apps, Gavin's work on antibodies, and in Oxford doing all the serology surveillance. And that's just been replicated all over the world. And that would not have been possible without the overseas unit and the Oxford Tropical Network. So that's why it's the most important thing we've done. In terms of global impact, this is just one slide of many that we've had from the sessions. And the reason I just wanted to point this out was, the breadth, not only the AAPs, but everything else we're going to do. And you're going to hear from that next from Kevin talking about Africa. But Sarah's going to talk about pandemic preparedness in vaccines. And Tao Dong is going to talk about our new initiatives in China. And I'm sure Gavin's going to talk about the broader stuff, including the stuff that we're now doing in Brazil, involving other departments. And Alan is going to talk a little bit about the overview. Okay. So the Nuffield Department of Medicine, which is the overarching department that I'm the head of, that covers most of this activity, is a very big department, and it's constructed as a number of separate institutes. And over the last, including the AAPs, and these are the kind of ones mainly the ones in Oxford. And in the last 5 years since I've been head of department, the number of these has continued to expand. So just to give you a bit of flavour of this, we've got institutes with GSK, we've got the Pandemic Sciences Institute, we've got a new Centre for Immuno-Oncology, a Centre for Medicines Discovery. The director of that, Paul Brennan, is here. So this is the way in which we're structured. A lot of independent institutes. Our research income in the last 5 years has grown from about 150 million a year to 225. So that puts us about £20 million short of the entire research budget of the University of Bristol. Just to give you a bit of scale, just this one department. Of course, the medical sciences division that Gavin runs is about 3 times that size. It's about half the research heft of the entire University of Edinburgh in one department. And we've got research collaborations in 135 countries. There can't be any institution worldwide that has this kind of activity. Okay, strategy. So, as I said, we don't really do strategy. This is David Weatherall, my predecessor as Nuffield Professor of Medicine, and Peter Williams, who was the head of the Wellcome Trust, on a rice barge here in Taiwan, sorting out the first initiative with Moro. And so that's sort of typical of how we, kind of work, or would like to work. And the main thing we do is stay friends and build our relationship with the Wellcome Trust. That's been our kind of main strategy over the years. But there are a number of principles I think that we like to take. The first is we like to be risk-taking, and the size of the department enables us to be risk-taking. We like, in general, this is bottom-up research. We have a very flat structure, so in terms of the NDM, there's a head of department, and then there's the heads of the institutes. That's the way in which we operate. And as far as the centre is concerned, the main purpose, I think, is to encourage good interactions and infrastructure. So we have strategic principles. Number one is trying to ensure we have equality in our partnerships, and that's partly about governance, but it's also about building capacity locally, and increasingly, of course, making sure that local people are taking on and leading the institutes within country. We're focused on excellence. That comes from our students. We want to focus our expertise. We don't want to get too broad and lose that excellence. And there's sometimes a bit of a tension, I think, between that and the advocacy from our funders. That's increasingly, with Gates and others, has become an issue, so we have to manage that. We leave the directors alone as much as possible. I mean, almost pretty much entirely, actually, they're left alone. We like them to empower them to take risks. We concentrate mainly on how we can put together our professional services and infrastructure. We're increasingly trying to get those infrastructures put in locally. There are some functions that we have to have centrally, but increasingly, as much as possible, we put those locally. Medical threats are pretty much blind to politics, and so we try to ensure that that's the view that we take within the department. I don't think that's always the case in the university. We have a pushback, don't we, Gavin, from the centre, but in the department we try to take that as our general principle. And if you look at the pandemic, that's we need to collect that connectivity. I've talked about global challenges, how we manage those as they're driven by the funders. That's an issue, but we're well advised by the heads of units, and we focus a lot on how we can add value centrally. And that's one of the things that Alan Bernstein is going to talk later, is kind of charged with looking at across the whole of the university. And that's something that I think clearly we feel we could do a little bit better at. Okay, so in a little bit more detail, the most important thing obviously is supporting people. You've heard a bit already about students and training. Trudy Lang's online course, that is the only one in the university, so very unique. We, as a principal, the department, all our income, unlike most departments in most universities, our income comes from 95% from research. So we don't, as a principal, try to make money out of students. If we get money from the masters, we use that to cycle into more students, and that is a critical thing for us. And that's one of the areas we really want to engage with the Welcome, to try and get more students. And I think we're beginning to do that with new initiatives with the overseas units on how we fund DPhils. A long-standing issue for the universities, it never has had a proper career track. So we're using some of the money that the vaccines have generated to create a career track. And so those of you who are on externally funded career development awards, that are externally funded early career awards, will be eligible for this. And the idea is that we're going to try and use the money that we've got endowed to give people a bit of a longer trackway, and then to give more at the end of that trackway. People will be given open-ended contracts with the university. That's the idea. So more people will be, have more security. You've still got to raise your grants, of course, in order to fund your research in the long term. But this is something that the department is doing, and so I'm pleased that we're kind of leading the way in that, and that's going to be rolled out over the next year. We're keen, of course, to support later people with a recognition of distinction. And since I started 4 years ago, this is some of the data, which also speaks to our research culture. You're going to cut me off, aren't you, Nick? Is that we've got we've had 43 associate professors. 20 of those are women, which we're very pleased about. And amazingly, 28 of those 43 come from the overseas units. And we've had a number of full professors. I mean, obviously there's a lag between getting the equality through to the senior positions, but we're doing better than we did. Okay, I'm going to ignore that because I know the rest of them are going to go slowly. So you can ring it again though, do it. So, estate fit for purpose. So, we've recently done the hospital in northern Thailand. The current project is the Centre for Tropical Medicine and Global Health on the Old Road campus. That's a picture from yesterday, and it's going to look like that. So that's going to give Mike and the entire team there a proper base. And going forward, we're on the cusp of starting work on the new Jenner building, which will be the Cyrus Poonawalla Vaccines building, and the Pandemic Sciences building linked to it. And another thing that I'm really keen to do is to work on how we can reconstruct the buildings in support in Moronik and Derek. So it's an important initiative we'd like to go. It's very important that we have the highest quality tools. I mean, you've heard a lot about data management, and I think this is an area that Oxford can help a lot. There's a big push to get a lot more high performance computing in Oxford. You've heard a lot about AI, so that's something we're going to try and focus, how we can interface with the overseas units on that. We're other knowledge and technology, and you've heard a lot more about pathology, single cell stuff. We really want to roll that into the units, and here the Wellcome Trust are keen to do that as well. And we're very keen to provide support for target drug discovery and trials in Oxford. This middle building here is our Centre for Medicines Discovery, which is run by Paul Brennan. So we're really keen to get those initiatives underway. We're having a meeting after this to discuss how we stitch all this stuff together. Communications obviously is a big issue. This is something I think that Alan's going to be looking at. Internally, we're good with this meeting. We're trying to bring directors of other units in to educate them. Externally, the public engagement. I mean, I got this from sorry, Dorcas, I didn't spell your name right there. It's a bit late. And Cherry, but I mean that looks like my brain in the morning. That house side thing, but and other funders. I think this is an area where we can probably improve. I like to say we just don't blow our own trumpet enough, and that's probably true. Finally, world-class professional services. We couldn't do it without them. Part of that is how we construct our governance. There's a lot of effort placed upon professional services, particularly overseas and in Oxford, on making sure that we're fully compliant. I think we've got to get a good partnership with the Wellcome on doing that. We have to be responsive. The complexity of our grants is increasing enormously, and yet our resources, Gavin, in the university, as you know, are struggled now to keep up with that. So one of the things we're trying to do is put a lot more of that, or we will try to do, is put a lot more of that resilience in the local units as part of building capacity. So we'll move as much of that sort of activity, and we started in Thailand. Okay, and of course you need excellent leadership, and so this is what we have a meeting every 2 weeks. This is us just before Christmas, and I don't think Catherine Kenyatta's in the audience, is she? Oh dear. I was hoping you wouldn't be. Well, because you always win the competition. Oh my God. Anyway, I thought I would end with thanks to you all, but I wanted a particular thanks to professional services, because without them they don't get enough knowledge. I'd just really like to finish with a round of applause for professional services team. And of course, for everybody who's organised, it's just amazing meetings. Okay, so thank you very much, Nick. Sorry I went over too much, but that's one thing I do.
Thank you very much, Richard. And that's 16 minutes, and we hope that we get more money for the building. So, so I might allow one quick question, if anyone want to. Okay.
What a great boss. Talk to me at the break.
Yes, I'll at the break or anytime, and I'm sure that his door always open. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.